Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hey, we're back. We're back with more live from the Heartland for the week of July 22nd. And it really, it's a pleasure to bring on this first guest for today's show. And that would be Grainne Dufffy. And
Yes.
she is en route to New Orleans from Ireland. And I think right now, I think you're in Washington, D.C., right?
I am, indeed, yes.
Well, we're looking forward to you coming to Chicago. And I think that's going to be next Thursday, the 27th, I think.
27th, correct?
At Martyr's on Lincoln Avenue.
That's right.
And we're gonna come over and see you. So let's find out a little bit about yourself. You're known as a blues woman. You do a lot of good music. I've been listening to it. Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, I suppose I am. That's correct. I would probably say I am a blues artist. I started off playing in a band with my sisters, which there was three of us, three girls in the band. We were like a rocked up version of the Corrs. We were doing like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But from that, I started playing more guitar. And when I heard Peter Green playing on Need Your Love So Bad, there was just no turning back. I fell in love with the blues, started playing more electric guitar, and then went on to record my first album, which was a blues, I suppose, blues roots album.
Where did you grow up in Ireland?
I grew up in a county called Monaghan, which is right on the border. So I'm like quite close to Northern Ireland. I live about an hour from Dublin and an hour from Belfast.
Well, I understand that when you were growing up, you didn't have a TV. So
That's right.
tell us what you guys did. You had you and your sisters. What were you doing every day when you weren't watching Howdy Doody and various kids' TV shows?
Well, there was 7 of us in our family, children. So we were either working because my parents had a business, so we would have to go and help them in the shop and in the garage. But mainly what we were doing was we had a record player. So we were allowed to get a record for Christmas or on our birthdays. So that was really where I developed the love of listening to music, was because when you'd no alternative, and we were big Bangles fans and Madonna fans. So I remember dancing around to Papa Don't Preach and, Walk Like an Egyptian and all that sort of stuff.
Aha. What kind of business did your folks have?
They were car sales.
Car sales.
Yeah.
What kind of car did you guys drive?
Everything. Every time we had a car, it got sold, and then we had a new car. So we never had a car for long. But they were like a faith dealership.
Well, Grainne, when did you first pick up an instrument, and what was it?
It was guitar. It was guitar, and it was really first of all, I started playing acoustic guitar, and I was playing a lot of Tracy Chapman and that kind of stuff. And then I realized when I heard Peter Green playing Need Your Love So Bad, I wanted to investigate the guitar more. So I started playing more lead and learning scales, and that was really, and I started learning like riffs, like Led Zeppelin riffs and things like that. I was probably around 16. Actually, I was a late starter.
Aha. Well, it's great that it's great to have an instrument to play. I started off on I think they had a little what do they call these things? It was like a little plastic flute, and then
a recorder.
Yeah, a recorder, and then I had a trumpet because Harry James was my last name is James, so that's why I picked the trumpet, and later the guitar, and mostly my kids do the playing. I like to sing. Tell us about your band. You've had a few bands, and I know you've changed drummers, et cetera, et cetera. I've been watching these videos of you. You fill us in on the progression of bands that you've been involved with.
Well, I've been very lucky. Growing up in County Monaghan, it was a real heritage of show bands, which I don't know if you know what they are, but they're basically the country music circuit in Ireland was quite strong when I was younger. And there was Aid Castlebany, the town I'm from, was the home of that. So there was a musician in everybody's family, which was brilliant because it meant that there was lots of musicians, even though we were quite a rural, small town. Everybody had like a brother, a guitar player, a sister who sang, an aunt who was like, you know, a drummer or something, you know. So, but really, County Monaghan, there was a great bass player where I'm from, Ronnie O'Flynn, and he actually played bass and drums on my first album. And he was really a bass player for me for the first about, I'd say, 7 years. And then we used a couple of different drummers. We've been very lucky. We've had Eamon First in the band for a long time. He's now plays with the Waterboys. And we had Darren Beckett in the band, and he has gone on to play with lots of great artists with like Madeleine Peru and lots of other people. And then we also had a guy, Jerry Morgan, play with us for a long time, who's was with James Bay. He kind of was with us, and then he went on to play with James Bay. So it's like anything else. You'll have players who will be in the fold for a while, and then they will, you know, play. And then with Davy Watson was a very long time standing bass player who played with us. He actually had a band for a long time called the Bogey Boys. And they were like a support band in Lizzie in America. So he was a rocker that we drafted in for a long time. But now for this record, we've had a really lucky, we're very fortunate. We got playing with Gary Clark Jr.'s rhythm section, which is Elijah Ford and JJ Johnson, who's also played with John Mayer and countless other people. And then we also had Mark Ford from the Black Crowes come in and guest on guitar and production.
Well, you mentioned this record, and I noticed that you have a lot of records out. Why don't you tell us about some of the records you have and the new one that you're out about now, pushing it?
Yeah, well, basically, I have about 5 studio records. From my first record was Out of the Dark, kind of a blues roots album. Second album was Test of Time, a wee bit more rock, kind of Stonesy influenced. Where I Belong, which we recorded in America with a lovely producer, Justin Stanley, is married to Nick Costa. And that was more of a roots kind of an album, country roots album. Then I had a live album, which was recorded in Germany. And then we have this record. We had, Voodoo Blues, which came out during lockdown, recorded with Amy Winehouse's band, 2 players that played with her, which are Dale Davis and Troy Miller, who Troy Miller is a really well-known producer in England, works with people like Gregory Porter and lots of other people besides Diana Ross. And he came on board for it, and it was great. And we recorded during lockdown. And then this record, which is the most recent record, Dirt Woman Blues, and we were production duties was shared between Mark Ford and Chris Goldsmith, who has worked with Ben Harper and, you know, Blind Boys of Alabama, and he's won a Grammy Award for that work. So it was really good to get working with Chris.
Oh, that's nice. The Blind Boys of Alabama. How much gospel music do you listen to growing up in Ireland?
Well, actually, I was a big fan of choir music because although we've more in our church, I sang in the local choir. It was the first place I sang was in my local choir. But we weren't doing gospel. We were doing more like just religious songs. But I developed a love, and I remember listening to lots of Aretha. But then I've also recently got really into Rosella Tharpe and listening to that kind of, I know she would have been more like some early history in gospel music.
There's a gospel show that follows our show on Saturday mornings on Loyola's WLUW, which is all old gospel music.
Wow.
It's really pretty neat, you know.
Okay.
Anyhow, you also had mentioned country and Western music, and I know that even when I was in Ireland, 2 times I was over there, and but I did sense that there was an enthusiasm for CNW. And I'm just wondering who your favorite country artist might be.
Actually, my favorite, which sometimes is a debatable one, my favorite country singer in the female area was actually Linda Ronstadt. I absolutely love Linda's vocals. I mean, they were very clear and very perfect and very, you know, refined in comparison to what I do. But I really appreciated her style and her sense of delivery in her music. But actually, I love people like Willie Nelson. And in terms of other people, I love whenever Bob Dylan does a bit of country, like Lily Lay. And to be honest, like my father was a huge country fan, so he loved people like Waylon Jennings, and he loved Johnny Cash. So that was really a big influence whenever we were growing up listening to that sort of music as well.
I like all of them. I got to say my favorite would be George Jones still.
Ah, yeah, George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Like those, all of that era is brilliant, and the songwriting is excellent. You know, and I'm lucky because my husband, his mother is a singer called Gloria, and she had a hit in Ireland, #1 hit, the longest #1 hit in Ireland, with the song One Day at a Time. But she would have played us an awful lot of the original, like George Jones stuff and Tammy, and she really educated me on country, good American country music too.
Grainne, I think you mentioned that you did, one of your recordings was done in the States?
That's right. Well, this is the second album I've done in the States. The first one I did was the album Where I Belong, and we did it in LA. And then this one here, Dirt Woman Blues, which you just released, was recorded in San Diego.
Dirt Woman Blues is the new one.
It's a new
Recorded
one.
in San Diego, but this is the first time you've come to the States to actually perform, right?
That's correct. This would be our first time performing here.
And
We performed in Canada, played Tremblant, Mont Tremblant in Canada. That was a big festival, lovely festival that they had us up there before.
so you're right now heading to New Orleans.
Yes,
And where are you going to play down there?
we are playing in a cool club called the Chikiwawa, which is quite a well-respected music club.
How do you
We
say
actually, the Chikiwawa, we actually were
Chikiwawa.
booked to play during the Heritage Festival. And unfortunately, that gig fell through because our artist visas came late. So we had to reschedule it to the lovely warm month of July in New Orleans.
that Blues and Heritage Festival is actually wonderful. I was down there in, I don't know, the late 70s. And it was one of
Okay.
the funnest times. I've had a lot of fun times in New Orleans. It's a great city. And then you're coming up here to Chicago, right? And where are you going to
That's
play
correct.
while you're here?
We're playing Martyrs. So, and we're also playing the Irish Heritage Centre. We're doing both. We're doing Martyrs on next Thursday. And we're really looking forward to that. And then on Friday, we're doing the Irish Heritage Centre, which is a duo gig. It's not a full band gig. And we're actually playing the midday news channel. We're doing a slot on the day before on, what is your news channel called? Is it WNC? What's your main
I
news
don't know.
channel?
We got a lot of them. There's a
In
different.
Chicago. Okay. So we're doing the midday show for that.
And do you have the whole band with you?
No, we're actually playing with a band down here in New Orleans, and then we're also playing with a different band up in Chicago-based drum and bass player.
Do you know who you got playing with you in Chicago?
It's the two guys. You know what? You've got me there. I'm gonna have to check.
Wasn't trying to get you.
I do know that they're very well respected musicians, but they were kind of sourced for me, so we've yet to meet them.
I'm sure it'll be fun, and it'll be a good event. So
Yes.
Martyrs is on Lincoln Avenue, and that's next Thursday. So people will have had a chance to hear this interview, and hopefully they'll be all breaking down the doors over there at Martyrs. I'd like to ask you a little bit about growing up again. Who were some of your favorite musicians? I mean, you've mentioned some of them, but I know that on those records you would get for Christmas, you had to have different people. So who were some of those albums that you were listening to?
Well, I actually remember my sister, actually, she was going out with a drummer and he was always bringing home stuff, like bringing stuff. They used to just have like music dates where he'd come over with all of his collection and she'd have her collection, and they'd make the old mixtape for each other. So I remember just sneaking into her room when she wasn't there and stealing whatever albums he'd brought over. So that really was my introduction to Led Zeppelin, and really the Pretenders were a huge band for me. I love Chrissie Hynde. I love her style of delivery and her songwriting. Then I also am really influenced by Fleetwood Mac, early Fleetwood Mac and late, because the two girls love Stevie Nicks and Kirsty McVie. And they were really a big influence on me, the side of songwriting in the later Fleetwood Mac as well. And I'm of course being Irish, I'm influenced by Thin Lizzy, Van Morrison, and Sinead O'Connor. I love all those artists as well, but primarily like singers. But a huge artist for me is Bob Dylan. I absolutely adore Bob Dylan. Love the way he writes, crafts his songs, crafts his lyrics, and I actually love his delivery. People argue with me all the time he's the worst singer in the world, and to me he's probably one of the best singers in the world, because you know what he's trying to say in his songs.
Grainne, when did you know that you wanted to be a musician? And how do you like it? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. I remember we were lucky with the Harvest Time Blues Festival in County Monaghan, which was a really great blues festival, bringing in bands from everywhere across the world. Peter Green played at it, and Van Morrison played at it, Gary Moore played at it. But I remember seeing a band called the Nemo Brothers, who I'd share the circuit with now in Europe. We're often on bills together. And I remember thinking, I want to be like those guys. They play all the time. They've got, and I remember at their gig thinking, I want to be a musician. I want to have my guitar in the hall, and I want to be going out to gigs. And that really was the moment I went, this is what I want to do.
Well, I understand that you also have a PhD.
Yes.
So maybe you could tell us about that and when you decided you didn't want to be like a scholar or a professor and you were gonna front a band.
It was the other way around. I've actually just finished my PhD. So, yeah. So I kind of just actually, I was spending so much time traveling and being on the road. And like, sometimes you're waiting in airports and you're waiting just in hotel rooms and you're waiting and you might not have your guitar and you can't really get up and just start singing in the middle of the airport. So I wanted to put my time into something useful. So I said, what do I love? Love blues. And I did a study in women in the blues. And that kind of went from the Seventh Park up to Bonnie Raitt and just their place in history and looking at what they've brought in terms of their style of playing. And it was something that really informed me and helped me when I was writing the lyrics for Voodoo Blues and this record. So it was something that was both double-handed. It was something I wanted to do for myself, but it also ended up influencing me as a musician too.
Do you ever think about turning your PhD dissertation into a book?
I don't know. That's quite a challenge. For now, I'm happy to just take a break from all that. But maybe down the road somewhere.
What are your expectations for your career and what are your hopes?
Yeah, to be honest, I am just happy if I can still be able to play professionally. And of course, it's about like the kind of gigs I like doing. We've been really, really lucky. We got to play Glastonbury last year. Like to be able to mix it between doing nice club shows, some theatre shows, and festival shows that, like, you're in the right place, you're challenging yourself, you're moving forward with your music, and to be able to just live as a professional musician. I don't have huge aspirations in terms of, like I'm not expecting any massive things in terms of wanting to be a big name or anything like that. But obviously it's lovely to get recognition, but that's not what it's about. But in saying that, we got nominated for a Blues Blast Award this year in America, which is really surprising and was really, really nice. So fingers crossed we might, to be honest, it's a humble aspiration, but it's also, for me, is the biggest aspiration in life is just to continue being a professional musician and doing shows that of course are a credible standard, and I'm pushing my music forward and not getting static and playing the same gigs all the time.
We just had on the show a fellow named Russ Bradford who he's into traditional Irish music. He's from Chicago, lives in New Mexico, teaches there, was into basketball, coached in Ireland, and he did a book called Paddy on the Hardwood about when he was learning the fiddle in Ireland from Paddy Jones, and he was also coaching basketball. And he's a political guy. And when I went to Ireland to visit him, and the other time I was there, I'm always interested in Irish politics. And I'm wondering if you care to talk a little bit about how things are going in Ireland. I mean, you probably grew up in the time of the Troubles. You're also around during Brexit. What's going on and what would you share with us?
This is really a hot topic for me because I live right on the border. So, I grew up with RUC police, like controls, where we border controls, where as a young girl, if we were traveling only 10 minutes down the road, we'd have to go through an RUC checkpoint. We'd have to get out, our car would be searched. It's something that was quite intimidating for us growing up. There was bomb scares. Even like only about 5 years ago, I was doing a gig in Belfast and there was a pipe bomb in the venue. So we had to all leave the venue. Obviously, you're aware of all the marches and the unrest and things like that. But to be honest, I try to stay out of politics. In my band, I've had as many people from every background. Like I've had as many Protestants as Catholics in my playing circles. And the brilliant thing about music is that it unifies people. And obviously, I think at the moment we were actually in a lovely place there. I think in recent history that there was pretty much a nice, calm progression happening. Everything was very safe. You could go up into Northern Ireland very peacefully. There was a nice trade agreement. We could go shopping up there and come across the border. There were no checks. But sadly, with Brexit, there's some tension starting to rise again. And for me, that's a negative thing because I don't see anything good coming out of that unrest. And, I'm sad to see it going backwards, not forwards,
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay, well, give us a little bit of a promotional blast about your gig at Martyrs next week. Tell people to
Okay.
come and what they're going to see, who they're going to
Mm.
who's playing, etc. So you don't know who's playing with you, but tell us
Well,
about
I know that they're a quality bass player and drummer. I know that much. And look, if you come down to see us, you're going to hear a mix of blues, rock, soul. It'll be full of energy. It'll be passionate music, and I think if you give it a chance, I hope you will enjoy it, and it'll be a good night.
Well, I looked you up online and I was listening to your music and I really liked it. And
Oh, thank you.
I love Martyrs. It's a great club. We love Chicago. We love Ireland, and we're really glad you're here. New Orleans is lucky that they're going to have you first, but second performance in the States will be right here in Chicago.
Thank you, Michael. That's lovely, and you're very complimentary. So I'm looking forward to seeing you at the show, and I'm expecting you front row now. You know all the lyrics and everything.
I'll be yelling away, and I won't be too political. I'll just
Okay.
come on.
Cool. I'm not. I try to wave the white flag. I'm not really a political person at all, as much as possible.
Well, I would argue with you that everything is influenced by politics, so it's important to stay tuned. But you're doing a great job, and you make a lot of people happy. And I'm glad I'm getting to know you.
Yes, me too. It's lovely speaking with you.